Prejudice often lurks unnoticed until someone refuses to back down. In the quiet streets of Crestview, a white gang's threats and vandalism kept black families living in fear. When they targeted a single mother's teenage daughter and 8-year-old son, they expected her to be easy to intimidate. Just another black woman too alone to fight back. But Monique Daniels was a former Marine, forged in combat and unshaken by danger. Their hatred set off a chain reaction, and by the time the dust settled, Crestview would never be the same. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The morning sun barely peeked through the kitchen blinds as Monique Daniels moved with practiced efficiency, her Marine training evident in every precise motion. The sizzle of bacon filled the air while she whisked eggs in a bowl, her eyes regularly scanning the backyard through the window, a habit she'd never managed to break since leaving the service. "Tasha, Jaden, breakfast in 5, she called up the stairs, her voice firm but warm. Jaden appeared first, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his Spider-Man pajamas wrinkled from tossing and turning. "Morning, Mom," he mumbled, climbing onto a kitchen stool. "Good morning, baby." Monique ruffled his hair as she set a glass of orange juice in front of him. "Sleep okay?" Before he could answer, Tasha thundered down the stairs, her backpack already slung over one shoulder. "Mom, don't forget, I've got basketball practice today. Coach Martinez wants us there until 5. "Already got it marked down," Monique replied, tapping the calendar on the fridge where she tracked their schedules with military precision. Different colored markers indicated each family member's activities: blue for Tasha, green for Jaden, red for her own appointments. As they ate breakfast, Monique reviewed her work schedule at the VA office. "I've got back-to-back appointments until 4, but I'll be done in time to pick you both up. Jaden, you're heading to the library with Mrs. Peterson's reading group after school, right?" Jaden nodded, his mouth full of scrambled eggs. "We're reading about dinosaurs today." "Chew first, talk second," Monique reminded him gently, but couldn't help smiling at his enthusiasm. While the kids finished eating, Monique did her usual morning security check. She tested the window locks, checked the security cameras she'd installed herself, and made sure the motion sensors were active. Some might call it paranoid, but Monique called it prepared. As they headed out to the car, their elderly neighbor, Mr. Harris, was already up, watering his prized rose bushes. His face creased with concern when he saw them. "Monique," he called out, setting down his watering can. "Got a minute?" "Kids, wait in the car," Monique said, handing Tasha the keys. She walked over to Mr. Harris's fence, noting how his normally cheerful demeanor seemed subdued. "Heard about what happened over on Oak Street?" he asked in a low voice. "The Johnson family's car got vandalized Saturday night. Spray paint, broken windows. You know the kind." Monique's jaw tightened. The Johnsons were one of the few other black families in their neighborhood. "No, I hadn't heard. Police are calling it random vandalism, but—" Mr. Harris shook his head. "Those symbols they painted weren't random. I saw them before, back in '65. His voice carried the weight of memories he'd rather forget. "Just keep your eyes open, okay? Things feel different lately." "Not good different?" "I appreciate the heads-up, Charles," Monique said, her mind already calculating new security measures she might need. "You see anything suspicious around here? You call me right away." "Day or night," he promised, then managed a smile for the kids watching from the car. "You all have a good day at school now." During the drive, Monique caught Tasha watching her in the rearview mirror. Her daughter was too perceptive for her own good sometimes. "Everything okay, Mom?" Tasha asked. "Just fine, baby. Mr. Harris was telling me about his roses," Monique lied smoothly. "No need to worry them." "Jaden, did you remember your art project?" "Yes. Miss Wilson's gonna love my drawing of our family." The rest of the drive was filled with Jaden's excited chatter about his art class, while Tasha texted her friends about basketball practice. Monique dropped them off with extra-tight hugs and watched until they were safely inside before heading to work. The VA office was already busy when she arrived. Monique spent her morning helping veterans navigate the complex benefits system, her own service giving her an edge in connecting with them. She understood their hypervigilance, their need to sit facing the door, the way their eyes tracked movement. It was like looking in a mirror sometimes. After work, Monique picked up both kids right on schedule. Jaden bubbled with excitement about the dinosaur books, while Tasha complained about their coach's new defensive drills. They needed to grab some groceries, so Monique pulled into the local supermarket's parking lot. Inside, it started almost immediately. The security guard followed them through 3 aisles before pretending to stock shelves nearby. Monique kept her face neutral, but noted his badge number, 247. At the deli counter, the worker served 3 other customers before acknowledging them, despite Monique having been there first. "Oh, I'm sorry," the woman said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't see you there." Tasha's shoulders tensed, but Monique placed a gentle hand on her back. "No problem at all," she replied pleasantly, even as she memorized the worker's name tag, Linda Matthews. While examining produce, another shopper clutched her purse tighter as she hurried past them. Jaden, thankfully too young to understand, was focused on picking out the perfect apple. But Monique saw how Tasha's fingers curled into fists at her sides. "Remember what we talked about," Monique murmured to her daughter. "Their ignorance isn't our emergency." "But Mom—" "I know, baby. I know." Monique squeezed her shoulder. "Just keep your head high. We've got nothing to be ashamed of." They continued shopping, Monique maintaining her calm exterior while her internal radar recorded every slight, every suspicious glance, every random encounter with store employees suddenly needing to restock nearby shelves. Her Marine training had taught her to observe without revealing she was observing, to gather intelligence while appearing completely at ease. The automatic doors of the supermarket hissed shut behind them as Monique led her children into the late afternoon sun. Her arms were loaded with grocery bags, and both kids carried lighter ones. "Mom, can we take the shortcut?" Jaden asked, pointing toward Cedar Street. "My arms are getting tired." Monique hesitated. Cedar Street was quieter than the main road, running behind the old warehouse district. Usually, she preferred staying on busier streets, but the bags were heavy, and the sun was still up. "Okay, but stay close," she agreed. "Tasha, keep an eye on your brother." They turned down Cedar Street, their footsteps echoing off brick walls. The warehouse windows stared down at them like empty eyes. Jaden hummed the theme song from his favorite cartoon, while Tasha scrolled through her phone. The sound of laughter bounced off the buildings ahead. A group of teenage boys emerged from between 2 warehouses, spreading across the sidewalk. Monique immediately recognized Travis Billings, the sheriff's son, his Letterman jacket marking him like a beacon. "Well, look who it is," Travis called out, his voice carrying that edge Monique had heard too many times before. "The diversity squad taking a field trip?" His friends snickered, forming a loose semicircle. There were 5 of them total, all wearing the same smug expressions. Monique was still half a block away, watching helplessly as they surrounded her children. "Leave us alone," Tasha said firmly, pushing Jaden behind her. "We're just walking home." "Public sidewalk," one of Travis's friends drawled. "We're just being friendly." "Right, boys?" Another boy stepped closer to Jaden, who clutched his grocery bag like a shield. "Nice shoes, kid. Bet those cost a lot. Your mama working extra shifts to afford those?" "Back off!" Tasha snapped, her voice sharp with fear disguised as anger. Travis moved forward, towering over Tasha. "Or what? You gonna call the cops?" My dad would love to hear all about how you were causing trouble. Monique's car was just around the corner. She'd parked it after dropping them off to walk to the store. Now she sprinted to it, hands steady despite her racing heart as she unlocked the door. Maybe you people should stick to your own neighborhood, Travis continued, shoving Jaden's shoulder. The boy stumbled, grocery bag splitting open. Apples rolled across the concrete. The engine roared to life. Monique accelerated around the corner, tires squealing. She slammed to a stop 20 feet from the group, high beams flashing. The car door opened with a purpose. "Step away from my children." Her voice cut through the air like a blade, pitched to carry, the same tone she'd used commanding Marines in combat situations. "Now!" The boys turned, startled by her sudden appearance, but Travis held his ground, though his swagger faltered slightly. "We're just talking, Mrs. Daniels." No law against talking. Monique moved with measured steps, her body language radiating controlled threat. She catalogued each face, each detail. Travis in his blue Letterman jacket, number 23. Blake Matthews, Linda from the deli counter's son, in a red hoodie. Mike Peterson, whose father owned the hardware store, wearing cargo shorts and a backwards cap. Two others she didn't know by name, but would remember. One with a distinctive dragon tattoo on his forearm, the other wearing a silver chain with a cross. "Here's what's going to happen," Monique said, her voice deadly calm. "You're going to turn around and walk away. And if I ever see any of you within 50 feet of my children again, we're going to have a very different conversation. One that involves security camera footage, witness statements, and hate crime charges. You threatening us?" Dragon Tattoo pulled out his phone, starting to record. "Not at all." Monique smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. "I'm promising you consequences for your choices. There's a difference. Your father might understand that better than most, Travis." The mention of his father made Travis's face flush red. "Whatever. This is boring anyway." He backed away, trying to maintain his dignity. "Come on, guys." The gang retreated, Dragon Tattoo still filming until they turned the corner. Only then did Monique rush to her children, hands gentle as she checked them over. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" She examined Jaden's shoulder where Travis had shoved him. "I'm okay, Mom," Jaden whispered, but his lower lip trembled. "The apples got smooshed, though." "We can get more apples, baby." Monique hugged him close, feeling his racing heart. "Tasha?" "I'm fine," Tasha said, but her voice shook slightly. "I should have taken us a different way home. I'm sorry." "This is not your fault," Monique said firmly. "None of this is your fault. Let's get home." They gathered the scattered groceries quickly, salvaging what they could. The drive home was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Once inside, Monique made sure the security system was armed before sitting down at the kitchen table with her laptop. She opened a new document and began typing, recording every detail while it was fresh. Time, location, exact quotes, descriptions of clothing and distinguishing features. She included the earlier incidents at the grocery store, building a pattern of harassment. Her fingers moved steadily across the keyboard, Marine training kicking in. Document everything. Leave nothing to memory. Create a paper trail. Jaden curled up on the couch with his dinosaur book, while Tasha stress-baked cookies, the kitchen filling with the smell of chocolate chips and vanilla. Monique kept writing, her report precise and professional, even as her hands wanted to shake with suppressed rage. The notification sound from Tasha's phone broke the evening quiet. She was curled up in the armchair, scrolling through social media, while Monique finished her incident report. "Mom," Tasha's voice wavered. "The video's everywhere." Monique moved to look over her daughter's shoulder. The shaky footage showed her confronting Travis and his gang, captured by Dragon Tattoo's phone. The comments section was already a battlefield. "Look at her trying to intimidate those boys," one comment read. "They were just hanging out." "Those boys were harassing children," another user fired back. She had every right to protect her kids. Tasha's thumb scrolled faster through the comments, her face growing tighter. Why are they saying such awful things about us? Monique gently took the phone from her daughter's hands. Some people speak from fear and ignorance. We can't control what they say, but we can control how we respond. "But they're lying," Jaden piped up from the couch. "Travis pushed me. They were being mean." "I know, baby." Monique sat between her children, drawing them close. "And that's exactly why we have to document everything. The truth matters, even when people try to twist it." More notifications popped up. The video had been shared in local Facebook groups, sparking heated debates. Monique recognized names from around town taking sides. Linda Matthews, Blake's mother. Those kids were just walking home. This is getting blown way out of proportion. James Harris, their neighbor. "I witnessed the whole thing. Those boys were clearly intimidating those children. Proud of you, Monique." Sarah Chen from the PTA. "This kind of harassment has no place in our community. We need to protect all our children." Monique closed the social media apps and opened her email instead. She attached her detailed incident report and sent copies to her personal lawyer, the school principal, and the NLACP Legal Defense Fund. Better to have everything documented and distributed now. "Listen to me, both of you," Monique said, her voice firm but gentle. "What happened today was wrong. Those boys tried to scare you because they thought they could get away with it. But we're not going to let fear control us." "Are they going to come back?" Jaden asked in a small voice. "I won't let them hurt you," Monique promised. "Starting tomorrow, I'm walking you both to and from school. We'll take different routes, stay in public spaces, and keep our phones ready to record if needed." "But Mom, I'm 15, Tasha protested. "I can't have my mother walking me to school." "This isn't about age, Tasha. It's about safety in numbers. Remember what I taught you in our drills? Stay alert, stay together, stay visible," Tasha recited. "Exactly. And tomorrow after school, we're going to review those self-defense moves I showed you. Both of you need to be prepared, just in case." Jaden perked up. "The ones where you showed us how to break free if someone grabs us?" "Yes, but remember, those are absolute last resort moves. The best defense is avoiding danger in the first place." More notifications buzzed. The local news had picked up the story. Comments were flooding in from neighboring towns, some expressing support, others spewing vitriol. Monique muted all notifications except from trusted contacts. "Can we make hot chocolate?" Jaden asked, clearly wanting comfort. "Of course." "Tasha, want to help?" While they worked in the kitchen, measuring cocoa and heating milk, Monique kept glancing at the windows. The street seemed quiet, but her instincts were humming. After the kids were settled with their drinks, she began her nightly security check. Front door deadbolt. Secured. Window locks. Engaged. Security cameras. Recording. She checked the feed on her phone, scanning each angle of the house's exterior. Everything looked normal, but something felt off. A flash of headlights caught her attention. Through the living room blinds, she spotted a dark sedan idling at the corner. No interior lights. Engine running. Her marine training kicked in as she noted details without obviously staring. Late model Chrysler 300. Dark blue or black. Tinted windows. The license plate was partially obscured by mud, but she could make out most of the numbers. Monique moved away from the window and pulled out her phone, typing the partial plate number and vehicle description into an email draft. She added the time, date, and location, then sent it to herself and her lawyer. Better to be paranoid than unprepared. "Mom?" Tasha called from the kitchen. "Want some hot chocolate?" "Be right there, baby." Monique took one last look through the blinds. The car was still there, a dark presence at the edge of their sanctuary. Back in the kitchen, she sat with her children, sipping hot chocolate and trying to project calm confidence. Inside, her mind was racing, plotting contingencies, mapping escape routes, identifying potential allies. The car outside might be nothing, or it might be everything. Either way, she would be ready. "Tell us a story, Mom," Jaden requested, chocolate mustache decorating his upper lip. "One of your Marine stories." "How about I tell you about the time my unit had to protect a school in Afghanistan?" Monique suggested, choosing a story that would reinforce today's lessons about standing up to bullies and protecting the vulnerable. As she told the story, she kept one ear tuned to the street outside, listening for any change in the ambient noise. The strange car's presence weighed on her mind, but she refused to let it steal this moment with her children. They needed her strength now more than ever. After tucking the kids into bed, Monique paced the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. "Mr. Harris, sorry to call so late." "Not late for me, Monique. Been keeping watch since that video went viral. Something's not right out there." "Did you notice a dark Chrysler hanging around earlier?" "Sure did. Got my camera pointed right at that corner. Want me to check the footage?" Monique released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Would you? I've got a bad feeling about this. Give me a minute." She heard keyboard clicking through the phone. "Well, well. Looks like our friend in the Chrysler wasn't alone. Got something you should see? I'll come over." "No, you stay put with those kids. I'll send it to your phone. There." Monique opened the video file. The grainy night vision footage showed the Chrysler parked at the corner. A figure in dark clothing slipped out of the passenger side, face obscured by a ski mask. They moved with purpose toward her house, staying in the shadows. "Keep watching," Mr. Harris said grimly. The masked figure approached her security cameras, reaching up with what looked like a small device. After a few seconds, they moved to the next camera, repeating the process. Some kind of signal jammer? Monique wondered aloud, her military training kicking in. Or worse, check your system. Monique pulled up her security app. The interface looked normal, but when she tried to access recent footage, she found nothing but static. Everything from the past 24 hours was gone. "They didn't just block the signal," she said, anger rising in her throat. "They wiped it clean. This is professional equipment, Mr. Harris. Not some punk kids with spray paint." Exactly what I was thinking. Travis and his gang might be the face of this, but somebody with resources is pulling strings. A soft thud from upstairs made Monique freeze. "Hold on." She moved silently to the stairs, listening intently. Tasha's voice drifted down. "Mom? I can't sleep." "Be right there, baby." To Mr. Harris, she whispered, "Let me check on the kids. Call you back? I'll keep watching." "Got your 6, Marine." Upstairs, Monique found Tasha sitting up in bed, hugging her knees. Jaden had migrated to his sister's room too, curled up at the foot of her bed like a worried puppy. "Can't sleep either, huh?" Monique sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers through Jaden's curls. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Travis's face," Tasha admitted. "The way he looked at us. Like we were nothing. Like we didn't belong here. Baby, look at me." Monique waited until Tasha met her eyes. "We belong exactly where we choose to be. Those boys, their parents, anyone who says different, they don't get to decide our worth. But what if they come back? Then we'll be ready. Remember what I always tell you about situational awareness? Stay alert, not afraid," Tasha recited. "That's right. Being afraid just clouds your judgment. We stay alert, we stay smart, and we stay together." Jaden stirred. "Can we sleep in your room tonight, Mom?" Monique considered refusing. She wanted them to feel safe in their own beds, But tonight wasn't the night for that lesson. Grab your pillows. We'll have a family sleepover. Once the kids were settled in her room, Monique resumed her call with Mr. Harris. He had more footage to share, showing the masked figure returning to the Chrysler after tampering with her cameras. "I'm going to check the exterior cameras," Monique said. "Make sure they didn't leave any surprises. Want me to come help?" "No. Stay where you can keep watch. I won't be long." Armed with a flashlight and her phone, Monique did a careful sweep of her house's perimeter. The cameras appeared undamaged, but she noticed something else: faint scuff marks on the wall beneath each one, suggesting someone had used a pole or tool to reach them. As she rounded the front porch, her flashlight beam caught something that made her blood run cold. There, propped against her front door, was a single white rose. The image triggered an instant memory. Newspaper headlines from 3 years ago, when the Johnson family's house was burned down. They'd found white roses scattered through the charred ruins. The case was never solved, and the Johnsons had moved away shortly after. With trembling fingers, Monique dialed another number. "Maria, it's Monique. I know it's late, but I need your legal expertise. And maybe more than that. What's wrong?" Maria Alvarez's voice was instantly alert, despite the hour. "Someone tampered with my security system tonight, and they left me a message, a white rose, like the Johnson case." A sharp intake of breath. "Are you and the kids safe right now?" "We're inside, doors locked. But Maria, this feels bigger than just Travis and his gang. This feels organized. Don't touch the rose. Document everything with photos. I'm making some calls tonight. I still have contacts from the Johnson case. And Monique? Yeah? Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone. We'll figure this out." Monique stared at the white rose, its pale petals almost glowing in the darkness. Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to send this message, to let her know she was being watched. They probably expected her to run, like the Johnsons had. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Maria arrived at Monique's house carrying a thick legal briefcase and a determined expression. She found Monique at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed photos and handwritten notes. "Show me everything," Maria said, pulling up a chair. Monique spread out the security footage from Mr. Harris, the photos of the white rose, and her detailed timeline of events. They knew exactly what they were doing. Military precision. Look at how they moved between the cameras. Maria studied the grainy images. The equipment they use to wipe your system, that's not street-level stuff. That's police-grade tech. My thoughts exactly. Monique lowered her voice, glancing toward the living room where Tasha and Jaden were doing homework. "I've been digging into the Johnson case. 3 years ago, their house burns down. White roses in the ashes. Before that, the Martinez family. Their teenage son was beaten nearly to death. White Rose left at the hospital. They moved away a week later. I remember both cases." Maria pulled files from her briefcase. "But there's more. I made some calls last night. Found 4 other families in neighboring counties. Same pattern. Threats, white roses. Then either they leave town or—" She trailed off meaningfully. "Or they disappear," Monique finished. "It's organized, connected. These aren't random hate crimes. No, they're systematic. Look at the timing." Maria laid out a map marked with dates. Each incident happens just as families start speaking up, demanding justice. It's about keeping people quiet, maintaining control. From the living room came the sound of Tasha helping Jaden with math problems. The normalcy of it made Monique's chest ache. "My kids aren't going to live in fear," she said quietly. "Not in their own home? What's your plan?" Instead of answering, Monique led Maria through the house. She pointed out new security measures, motion sensors disguised as wall decorations, cameras hidden in smoke detectors, pressure plates under welcome mats that would trigger silent alarms. Non-lethal deterrence, Monique explained, showing Maria a cabinet of supplies. Pepper spray foam on doorways, sound grenades in the yard. Nothing that could seriously hurt anyone, but enough to slow them down and create evidence. In the basement, they found Tasha and Jaden waiting on exercise mats. Monique had converted the space into a training area. "Show Maria what we practiced," Monique encouraged. Tasha demonstrated a wrist break technique, while Jaden showed how to slip out of a grab. Their movements were careful, deliberate. Children learning to defend themselves in a world that shouldn't require it. "Mom's teaching us escape routes too," Tasha said proudly. "Through windows, over fences. We have meeting points and code words." Maria watched the children with a mix of admiration and sadness. "They're brave kids." "They shouldn't have to be," Monique replied. "But here we are." Back upstairs, they spread their evidence across the dining room table. Maria had brought police reports, newspaper articles, and court documents from similar cases. A pattern emerged. Families threatened, evidence destroyed, investigations mysteriously dropped. "The corruption goes deep," Maria said, arranging photos of officials and business leaders. "Sheriff Billings is just the surface. There's money behind this. Power. People who benefit from keeping certain families in their place." "Then we expose them all," Monique declared. "Every connection, every cover-up. If they want to play psychological warfare, they picked the wrong Marine." They worked through the afternoon, building a wall of evidence in Monique's home office. Red strings connected photos to timeline events. Yellow sticky notes marked questions still unanswered. Who funded the sophisticated equipment? How did they choose their targets? What happened to the families who disappeared? As evening fell, Maria packed up her files. "I'm meeting some journalist contacts tomorrow. We need to get this story out, but carefully. These people have resources." "And we have truth," Monique said, walking her to the door. "Thank you, Maria, for believing me, for helping. We're in this together," Maria assured her. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start pushing back." After dinner and bedtime stories, Monique sat at her desk reviewing the day's work. The wall of evidence loomed before her, each connection representing another family hurt, another injustice ignored. Her children slept peacefully upstairs, unaware of their mother's growing determination. The phone rang, breaking the late-night silence. Unknown number. "Hello?" A distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "Back off, or your kids are next." Monique's hand tightened on the receiver, knuckles white. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady and cold as steel. "You clearly don't know who you're dealing with. I've faced worse than you in war zones. You want to threaten my children? You better be ready for what comes next." She hung up, already reaching for her notebook. The call was a mistake. It showed fear. They wouldn't make threats if they weren't worried. Monique added it to her timeline. Another piece of evidence, another reason to fight harder. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats. But tonight, she was a Marine mom with a mission. Her children would grow up in a world where justice wasn't just a word, where standing up meant standing together. The people behind the white roses thought they could intimidate her into silence. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The morning sun barely crept over the horizon as Monique guided her children to the car. Her eyes constantly scanned the quiet street, checking corners and shadows. Military training kicked in automatically. Identify escape routes, note suspicious changes, maintain situational awareness. "Remember what we practiced," she told Tasha and Jaden as they climbed into the back seat. "Keep your phones on silent, but ready. Watch for anything unusual at school." "Yes, Mom," they answered in unison, their voices carrying a new seriousness that made her heart ache. Monique took a different route to school, making random turns and doubling back occasionally. In the rearview mirror, She tracked every vehicle that stayed behind them for more than 2 turns. A blue sedan 3 cars back caught her attention, but it turned off after a few blocks. Mr. Harris was waiting on his porch as they pulled out, coffee mug in hand. Monique slowed down just enough to exchange a meaningful look. He nodded, understanding the unspoken request to watch her house. "Got my cameras all charged up," he called out casually. But Monique caught the underlying message. His surveillance equipment was ready. At the school, Monique waited until her children were safely inside before parking across the street. She pulled out her phone and called Mr. Harris. "Thanks for having my back," she said. "Already got my schedule cleared," he replied. "Got some new equipment installed last night, too. Motion sensors, infrared. Anyone comes within 50 feet of your property, I'll know. I appreciate it. I'm going to do some investigating today. Might need you to check the footage later, see if we caught anything useful." After work, Monique parked near the high school, waiting for Travis's distinctive red muscle car. When he pulled out of the parking lot, she followed at a safe distance, using side streets to stay hidden. Travis drove to the edge of town, where empty lots gave way to industrial buildings. He pulled into a warehouse parking lot where 3 black SUVs waited. Monique parked behind a delivery truck, grabbing her binoculars. Travis met with 4 men in expensive suits, a stark contrast to the teenagers' casual clothes. They talked for 15 minutes, exchanging what looked like envelopes. Monique photographed everything with her telephoto lens. When the men left, Travis lingered, making phone calls. Monique used the opportunity to slip closer, moving between parked trucks. Years of Marine training made her footsteps silent as she approached his car. With practiced efficiency, she attached a small magnetic GPS tracker under his rear bumper. The device was military-grade, courtesy of Mr. Harris's connections. It would transmit location data directly to her phone. Back in her car, Monique called Maria. "Got something interesting," she said, sending the photos. Travis, meeting with suits at the old warehouse district. Looked like a payment drop. "I've been digging too," Maria replied. "Those property records we talked about? Half the abandoned buildings in that area are owned by shell companies. All trace back to the same law firm, one that represents our dear Sheriff Billings. Money laundering? Could be. Police payroll shows some interesting patterns, too. Huge overtime payments to certain officers. Always after incidents involving minority families. Hush money," Monique concluded. "Keep the right people quiet. Pay off the ones who help cover things up." "Exactly. And guess who approves all overtime requests? Sheriff Billings himself." Monique watched the GPS tracker's signal move across her phone screen as Travis drove around town. "I can track his movements now. Maybe catch them in the act." "Be careful," Maria warned. "These people have resources and connections. They're used to making problems disappear." "So am I," Monique replied grimly. "But I make sure there's evidence first." That evening, after checking on her sleeping children, Monique monitored Travis's movements. The GPS showed his car circling the same block repeatedly before stopping at a storage facility on the outskirts of town. Multiple other signals converged on the location, cars she recognized from her surveillance photos. A meeting was happening. In her bedroom, Monique changed into dark clothing and tactical gear. She laid out her non-lethal equipment: pepper spray, a stun gun, smoke grenades, and zip ties. Everything legal, everything defensive. She wasn't looking for a fight, just intelligence. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Harris. "All quiet here. Cameras running. Be safe." Monique checked her gear one final time, making sure everything was secure and silent. The GPS showed the meeting still in progress. Whatever was happening at that storage unit, she was about to find out. She took a deep breath, centering herself. This wasn't just about protecting her family anymore. It was about exposing a system that had terrorized countless others. Tonight's reconnaissance could provide the evidence they needed to bring it all down. The tools of her trade lay ready: camera, recorder, night vision goggles, non-lethal weapons within easy reach. She was prepared for whatever she might find. The storage facility loomed dark and silent as Monique crouched behind a stack of empty pallets. Her night vision goggles turned the shadowy lot into a green-tinted landscape of sharp edges and hidden corners. The air felt thick with tension. She checked her watch. 11:47 p.m. Travis's red car sat parked next to 3 black SUVs outside Unit 247. The GPS tracker had led her right to them. Through her binoculars, Monique watched shadows move behind the unit's partially open door. She steadied her camera, making sure the zoom lens captured every detail. Her finger hovered over the record button, waiting. Sheriff Billings emerged first, his badge catching the dim security lights. Travis followed, carrying a metal briefcase. Behind them came 4 men wearing white masks, plain, featureless things that made Monique's skin crawl. "Monthly numbers are good," Billings said, his voice carrying in the quiet night. "But we need to speed up the timeline. Too many people asking questions lately." "The Daniels woman?" one masked man asked. "She's being handled," Billings replied. "Focus on the other families on the list. Make sure they understand the consequences of staying." Monique's camera clicked silently, capturing every moment. Her hands stayed steady despite the anger burning in her chest. She documented the exchange of envelopes, the counting of cash, the passing of what looked like property deeds. Travis stood apart, trying to look tough but fidgeting whenever his father glanced his way. He held the briefcase tight against his chest, like a shield. "Remember," Billings continued, "clean operations only. No evidence, no witnesses. Just fear. Fear makes people run." The meeting lasted 20 minutes. Monique recorded it all: faces, license plates, conversations about territories and payoffs. When they finally left, she waited another 10 minutes, making sure they were really gone. The storage unit's lock was expensive but simple. Monique's marine training made quick work of it. She slipped inside, switching her goggles to infrared mode. The unit was larger than it looked from outside. Metal shelves lined the walls, stacked with boxes and crates. A desk sat in one corner, covered in papers. The air smelled of gun oil and mildew. Monique started with the desk, photographing documents, purchase orders for weapons, lists of addresses, all belonging to minority families, bank statements showing massive transfers through offshore accounts. In a filing cabinet, she found folders labeled with dates going back 5 years. Each contained photos of families, surveillance notes, and incident reports detailing orchestrated acts of intimidation. Some folders ended with a single white rose pressed between the pages. Her hands shook as she opened a crate marked "Supplies." Inside lay dozens of white masks, like the ones the men had worn. Underneath were propaganda materials, hate group newsletters, racist manifestos, instruction manuals for making threats look like random crimes. Another crate held weapons, modified rifles with serial numbers filed off, boxes of ammunition, homemade explosives. Monique photographed everything, her camera clicking frantically in the darkness. A manila envelope caught her eye. Inside were photos of her own house, her children at school, her car in the VA parking lot. Notes detailed her schedule, her habits, her vulnerabilities. The last page was a simple instruction: make her run. Footsteps outside made her freeze. A car door slammed nearby. Someone had returned. Monique quickly replaced everything exactly as she'd found it, her heart pounding, but her movements precise. The footsteps grew closer. Keys jingled. Monique killed her lights and pressed herself into a corner behind a tall shelf, controlling her breathing like she'd learned in combat training. The door creaked open. A flashlight beam swept the unit. Through her goggles, Monique recognized one of Travis's gang members, the one who'd filmed her on his phone. He walked to the desk, dropping something in a drawer. The beam of light passed inches from Monique's hiding spot. She didn't move, didn't breathe. The gang member paused, sensing something wrong. He turned slowly, scanning the unit again. Monique saw his hand move toward his waistband, where a gun bulged under his jacket. A car horn blared in the distance. The young man jumped, then laughed nervously at himself. He hurried out, locking the door behind him. Monique waited 5 long minutes before moving. She slipped out of the unit, resetting the lock perfectly. Her steps were silent as she crossed the lot, staying in shadows until she reached her car 2 blocks away. The drive home felt endless. Every set of headlights made her tense, expecting pursuit. But she made it back without incident, parking in her garage where cameras couldn't see. In her bedroom, Monique pulled up the floorboard under her bed. The hidden compartment, installed the day she bought the house, was lined with waterproof material. She stored her camera's memory card, a backup drive of photos, and detailed notes inside a sealed container. The evidence was safe. Now she just had to figure out how to use it without getting her family killed. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, but it brought no warmth to the tense breakfast table. Monique stirred her coffee, watching her children pick at their eggs and toast. Tasha kept glancing at the windows, while Jaden huddled closer to his sister than usual. "Mom?" Jaden's voice was small. "Are the bad people coming back?" Monique set down her cup, choosing her words carefully. "Nobody's coming here, baby. Remember what we practiced? We're safe together." But Tasha wasn't buying it. She pushed her plate away, arms crossed. "You were out late last night. Again. I heard you come in." "I had some work to do," Monique said, meeting her daughter's skeptical gaze. "Important work to keep us safe." "But who's keeping you safe?" Tasha demanded, her voice cracking slightly. Before Monique could answer, her phone buzzed. Maria's text read, "On my way. Big news." 20 minutes later, Maria sat at their kitchen table, examining the photos and documents from the storage unit. Her usually composed face showed flickers of shock as she scrolled through the evidence. "This is extensive," Maria said, pausing on a particularly damning photo of Sheriff Billings. "They've been systematically targeting families for years. The property records alone prove real estate fraud." "Can you use it?" Monique asked, keeping her voice low so the kids wouldn't hear from the living room. "Yes, but carefully. I'm meeting with the Unity Coalition tonight, local civil rights leaders who've been documenting similar cases. We need to build a network of support before we move." A knock at the door made them both jump. Monique checked the security camera feed on her phone before opening it. Mrs. Peterson, their neighbor from 3 houses down, stood on the porch wringing her hands. "Monique, dear." The older woman's voice trembled. "I had to come tell you. People are talking, watching. That Jenkins boy who delivers papers, he's been taking pictures of your house. And there's a car that parks at the end of the street every night." Monique's spine stiffened. Mrs. Peterson had always been friendly, bringing over cookies when they first moved in. But now her eyes darted nervously past Monique's shoulder. "Thank you for telling me," Monique said quietly. "You should probably go now, for your own safety." After Mrs. Peterson hurried away, Monique did a slow walk around her house. She noticed things she'd missed before. Slight changes in the angles of her security cameras, scuff marks under windows, a cable running along her fence that hadn't been there yesterday. Inside, Maria was packing up the evidence. "I'll get this somewhere safe right away. The coalition meets at 7 p.m. I'll call you after—" "No calls," Monique cut in. "They're watching the house. Probably listening too. Text only, and use the code words we discussed." Maria nodded, understanding. As a civil rights lawyer, she'd seen this pattern before. "Stay alert. I'll be in touch." The day crawled by. Monique kept the kids inside, using their emergency protocols as practice. They played board games and watched movies, but the tension never left the room. As evening approached, Monique sent Tasha and Jaden to their basement fort. Really, a reinforced safe room she'd installed months ago. Remember the rules? Lock the door, stay quiet, don't come out until I give the password. Jaden hugged her tight. Be careful, Mom. Always am, soldier, she smiled, ruffling his hair. Outside, the sunset cast long shadows across her yard. Monique moved silently along the house's perimeter, checking each camera. The third one showed signs of tampering. Fingerprints on the lens, mounting bracket slightly loose. A soft scraping sound came from around the corner. Monique pressed herself against the wall, controlling her breathing just like she'd done in the storage unit. The footsteps grew closer. A man in dark clothes reached up toward another camera, something small and electronic in his hand. Monique recognized his movements, military or law enforcement training. She struck fast, using his own momentum to slam him face first into the wall. Her knee pressed into his lower back, one arm twisted up behind him. "Police! Let me!" he started to shout. Monique increased pressure on his arm. "Badge number first, officer." Slowly, he recited it, breathing hard. She knew that number. Officer Reynolds, 2 years on the force, usually worked traffic duty. "What's that in your hand, Reynolds?" She plucked the device from his fingers. "Looks like an illegal wiretap to me. Care to explain?" "You don't understand," he gasped. "They made me do it. Said it was a routine surveillance job." "Who's they?" She shifted her grip, reminding him who was in control. "The sheriff. His friends. They've got dirt on everyone. My brother's drug charge. They said they'd reopen the case." Monique pulled out her phone, started recording. "Tell me everything. Names, dates, what they wanted you to do to my house." Reynolds talked. She kept him pinned until he'd spilled it all. The surveillance rotation, the blackmail they used on officers, the weekly meetings where new targets were assigned. Finally, she let him up. He stumbled away from the wall, rubbing his arm. "That recording goes to my lawyer if anything happens to me or my kids," Monique said, her voice steel. "And Reynolds? Next time you come near my house, I won't be so gentle." He nodded shakily and fled into the darkness. Monique watched until he was gone, then methodically checked every camera again. She found 3 more bugs, carefully documenting each one before destroying them. The night had grown cold. Monique's hands ached from the confrontation, but her mind was clear. They thought they could intimidate her, break into her home, threaten her children. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. Time to show them exactly what a Marine mom could do. The evening sky turned purple as Monique pulled out of the school parking lot. Tasha, still in her basketball uniform, slumped against the window, while Jaden huddled in the back seat with his drawing pad. "Good practice?" Monique asked, checking her mirrors. "Coach says I might start next game," Tasha said, but her usual excitement was missing. Her eyes kept darting to the rearview mirror, copying her mother's vigilance. A black SUV appeared behind them, followed by a dark sedan. Monique's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The vehicles were keeping pace, staying just far enough back to seem casual. But she knew better. "Kids," she said calmly, "remember those car games we practiced? Time for a real round." Tasha sat up straight. Jaden quickly stuffed his drawings into his backpack and fastened his seatbelt tighter. The SUV suddenly accelerated, pulling alongside them. The sedan swung out, trying to box them in. Through tinted windows, Monique caught glimpses of masked faces. "Hold on tight," she ordered, downshifting smoothly. Her Marine training kicked in as she executed a perfect defensive driving maneuver, dropping back sharply as the SUV tried to sideswipe them. "Mom!" Jaden cried out as the sedan swerved toward them. Eyes closed, hands crossed over your chest," Monique commanded. She yanked the wheel hard, whipping their car through a narrow gap between the attackers. The sedan's mirror clipped their bumper with a sharp crack. Tasha braced herself against the dashboard. "They're still coming!" Monique took a sharp turn onto a side street, then another. The pursuing vehicles stayed close, engines roaring. She reached under her seat with one hand, fingers finding the small device she'd prepared for exactly this scenario. "When I say now," she told Tasha, "pull that red tab and throw it out your window. Jaden, keep your eyes covered." The SUV accelerated, trying to ram them from behind. Monique waited until they approached the next intersection, then shouted, "Now!" Tasha yanked the tab and tossed the device. It erupted in a thick cloud of white smoke, obscuring their car completely. Monique made a hard turn through the cloud, hearing squealing brakes and cursing behind them as their pursuers lost visual contact. She took a series of random turns through back streets, making sure they weren't followed, before finally heading home. Her hands were steady on the wheel, but her heart pounded. They'd been lucky. This time. "Everyone okay?" she asked, pulling into their driveway. That was like a movie," Jaden whispered, uncovering his eyes. "You learned that in the Marines?" Tasha asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Among other things," Monique said grimly, scanning their surroundings before letting them out. "Stay close to me." They approached the house cautiously. Even in the dim light, Monique immediately saw what was wrong. Glass glittered on the welcome mat. Every window on the ground floor had been smashed. "Back to the car," she ordered, but then caught movement. Mr. Harris was hurrying toward them from his house, phone in hand. "Already called the police," he wheezed. "Happened about 20 minutes ago. 3 men in masks. I got pictures, but they saw me and—" He gestured to his own broken window. "Get inside your house and lock up," Monique told him. "We'll check on you soon." She led her children through their front door, careful to avoid the glass. The living room was a disaster. Furniture overturned, photos smashed, walls spray-painted. On the largest wall, fresh red paint spelled out, "This is your last warning." Jaden started crying. Tasha pulled him close, her own face pale but angry. "Pack your emergency bags," Monique said. "Just like we practiced." 5 minutes. While they ran upstairs, she did a quick sweep of the house. More vandalism, but nothing stolen. This was about sending a message. She pulled out her phone and texted Maria. Code red. Need meet ASAP. Her next call was to Mr. Harris. "Charles? You safe to come over? Bring that camera." Within 15 minutes, Maria's car pulled up outside. She gasped at the destruction but quickly switched to lawyer mode, photographing everything and taking notes. Mr. Harris arrived with his camera and a laptop. "Got clear shots of their faces when the masks slipped," he said, pulling up the images. "One of them is Deputy Rogers. I'd bet my pension on it." "They're escalating," Maria said, examining the threatening message. This pattern matches what happened to the Johnson family before they disappeared last year. Tasha and Jaden came downstairs with their bags, faces set in matching expressions of fear and determination. "I hate this," Tasha burst out. "Why can't they just leave us alone? Why do we have to live like this?" "Because they're cowards," Monique said firmly. "And cowards hate nothing more than someone who stands up to them." "But what if they really hurt you?" Jaden asked, his voice small. "Like they hurt those other families?" Monique knelt in front of her children, looking them each in the eye. "Listen to me. What they did tonight, that was fear. They're scared because we have evidence. We have witnesses. And now, thanks to Mr. Harris, we have their faces." Maria stepped forward, putting a hand on Tasha's shoulder. "We're not alone anymore. I've got the coalition ready to move. Mr. Harris has proof. Your mom has a plan. And we're done playing defense," Monique added. It's time to show the circle exactly who they're dealing with. Tasha stood at her locker, trying to focus on organizing her books despite her shaking hands. Last night's events kept replaying in her mind. The car chase, the broken windows, her mother's fierce determination. The hallway buzzed with whispers and stares from other students. Her phone vibrated. A text from Ashley, one of her basketball teammates. Need to talk ASAP. Coach's office. Important about tomorrow's game. Tasha hesitated, remembering her mother's warnings about being alone. But Ashley had always been friendly, one of the few white students who still talked to her. The coach's office was just down the empty side hallway. She walked cautiously, her footsteps echoing. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting strange shadows. No sign of Ashley. Just as Tasha turned to leave, she heard footsteps behind her. "Looking for someone?" Travis's voice made her freeze. He blocked the hallway, flanked by 3 friends, all wearing Letterman jackets, all smirking. "Get out of my way," Tasha said firmly, trying to channel her mother's marine voice. She reached for her phone. "Nobody's answering," one of Travis's friends taunted, holding up Ashley's phone. "Amazing what people leave lying around in the locker room." Travis stepped closer. "Your mom thinks she's so tough, but look at you now, all alone." Tasha backed away, but 2 more boys appeared behind her. The trap was complete. Her heart hammered as she remembered her mother's self-defense lessons. Create distance, look for weapons, find exits. "My mom will," she started. "Your mom's about to have bigger problems," Travis sneered. He nodded to his friends. They moved fast. One grabbed her backpack while another twisted her arm. Tasha fought back, landing a solid kick that made one boy stumble. But there were too many. A punch to her stomach knocked the wind out of her. She fell hard against the lockers. "That's for getting my dad involved," Travis spat, landing another blow. Through the pain, Tasha heard a phone camera clicking. They were recording it. She tried to cover her face as the kicks came. Across town, Monique sat at her desk in the VA office, reviewing case files. Her phone buzzed with an urgent text from Maria. "Police coming. Evidence against you. Don't resist." Before she could respond, heavy footsteps approached. 2 uniformed officers entered, followed by Sheriff Billings himself. "Monique Daniels," Billings announced loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. "You're under arrest for the assault of a minor." "What?" Monique stood slowly, hands visible. Her co-workers stared. "We have video evidence of you attacking Travis Billings yesterday afternoon," the sheriff continued, producing a warrant, along with witness statements about threats and harassment. "That's impossible," Monique said calmly, though her mind raced. "I was here all day. Check the security cameras." "Unfortunately, there seems to be a gap in the footage." Billings smiled coldly. "Turn around, please." The handcuffs clicked shut as Monique's supervisor watched helplessly. She knew resisting would only make things worse. They led her through the office as whispers followed. At the station, they showed her the evidence, clearly doctored footage, showing someone with her build attacking Travis, conveniently filmed from an angle that obscured the attacker's face. The timestamp matched her work hours. "Where are my children?" Monique demanded from across the interrogation table. "Child Protective Services is handling that situation," Billings said. "Given the violent nature of these charges, they've determined your home is no longer safe. The Whitman family has graciously offered to take temporary custody." Monique's blood ran cold. The Whitmans, she'd seen their name in the Circle's documents. "I want my lawyer. Now." "Of course," Billings smiled. "But first, processing." They took her fingerprints, photographs, and personal belongings. In her holding cell, Monique paced, counting the minutes until Maria arrived. 3 hours passed before her friend appeared, looking shaken. "They moved fast," Maria said quietly. "The Whitmans already have custody. Emergency order signed by Judge Preston, another Circle member. My kids, Monique started, are scared but physically okay. I saw them briefly. Tasha, Maria hesitated. She's in the hospital. Minor injuries, they say. Travis and his friends attacked her at school. Monique gripped the cell bars until her knuckles went white. And Travis? Not even questioned. They're claiming self-defense. Maria's voice hardened. But that's not all. Mr. Harris, he tried to intervene when they took the kids. 3 men broke into his house an hour ago. He's in intensive care. Monique's military training kept her voice steady, but rage burned in her chest. Status? Critical, but stable. They worked him over badly, but he's tough. Maria leaned closer. Listen, I'm filing emergency motions. The coalition is mobilizing. We'll fight this. They won't stop, Monique said quietly. Not until they've destroyed everything I love. We knew they'd fight dirty, Maria replied. But we have evidence. Allies. No, Monique cut her off. You don't understand. This isn't about justice anymore. They're sending a message. Everyone who helps us becomes a target. A guard approached, signaling the end of visiting hours. Maria gathered her papers, promising to return tomorrow with updates. Alone in her cell, Monique sat on the thin mattress, back straight, face composed. But her mind was already shifting from defense to offense, analyzing weaknesses, calculating angles. The Circle thought they had her trapped. They didn't realize they'd just removed her last reason to play by the rules. In her cell, Monique sat motionless on the thin mattress, her mind racing through marine survival protocols. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she counted the guards' rotation patterns. 15 minutes between checks, clockwise movement, 2-person teams. She'd learned in training that every system had weaknesses. This one's weakness was predictability. Her body ached from the hard bench, but she stayed still, conserving energy. The cell was 8 by 10 feet, standard county layout. 1 toilet, 1 sink, 3 other women who mostly kept to themselves. The guards were bored, distracted. Typical small-town operation with minimal security training. You okay there, military lady? One of her cellmates asked. The woman had been watching her for hours. Monique gave a slight nod but didn't engage. She needed to focus. In the Corps, they'd taught her that survival wasn't just about strength. It was about timing, psychology, and using your opponent's assumptions against them. She waited until the night shift change, when attention would be lowest. At 11 p.m., she started her performance. First, subtle signs of distress, shallow breathing, cold sweats. She'd learned these techniques in combat theater, how to manipulate vital signs to fool medics. "Guard!" her cellmate called out. "Something's wrong with her!" Monique slumped against the wall, her body trembling. She'd seen enough panic attacks during her VA work to mimic the symptoms perfectly. Her heart rate climbed, a trick she'd mastered in training, making her pulse race when checked. 2 guards approached, shining flashlights through the bars. "Daniels? You hearing us?" She gasped for air, clutching her chest. The performance had to be convincing but not overdramatic. "Can't breathe," she wheezed. "Call medical," one guard shouted. "Possible cardiac event." The cell door opened. They helped her onto a gurney as Maria arrived, summoned as her attorney. In the confusion, Maria's hand brushed against Monique's, passing something small and hard, a burner phone, barely larger than a lighter. "My client has a history of anxiety attacks," Maria announced loudly. "She needs immediate medical attention." They wheeled Monique to the infirmary, a small room with outdated equipment. The night nurse started basic checks, while Maria insisted on staying present for legal reasons. Monique kept the tremors going, but her mind was clear, counting seconds. When the nurse stepped out to get medication, Monique palmed the phone. Her fingers moved quickly, muscle memory from tech training kicking in. The jail's Wi-Fi network was unsecured, another small-town oversight. She connected and activated the preloaded programs Maria had installed. Outside, the first protesters began arriving. Maria's contacts from the coalition spreading the word. Their chants echoed through the thin walls. "Free Monique! Justice now!" Monique's fingers flew over the tiny keyboard. First, she accessed the security camera feeds, downloading footage of Travis and his friends entering and leaving the storage unit. Next, she sent encrypted files to major news outlets, evidence of the circle's activities, financial records, the doctored video used to frame her. The nurse returned with anti-anxiety medication. Monique pretended to swallow it, tucking the pill under her tongue. Her vitals gradually stabilized as the crowd outside grew larger. Police sirens wailed as more protesters arrived. "We need to move her to the hospital," the nurse decided. Blood pressures still elevated. Maria stepped in. "I'll accompany my client. It's her right to have counsel present." They wheeled Monique through back corridors, trying to avoid the chaos out front. But the protesters had surrounded the building. News vans parked across the street, their lights illuminating the growing crowd. The ambulance waited in the Sally Port, but the exit was blocked by demonstrators. Officers tried to clear a path as cameras flashed and people pressed closer. "Stand back!" a deputy shouted, pushing through the crowd. In the confusion, Maria created a distraction. Accidentally, knocking over a supply cart. Medical supplies scattered across the ground. The guards turned to help, losing sight of Monique for crucial seconds. She moved fast, rolling off the gurney and into the crowd. Someone handed her a protest sign and a hoodie. She pulled it on, becoming just another face in the sea of angry demonstrators. The crowd surged forward, carrying her away from the jail. She heard shouts as the guards realized she was gone, but it was too late. The protesters closed ranks, protecting her without even knowing she was among them. Monique moved through the crowd methodically, never running, never drawing attention. She'd learned in the Corps that the best escape wasn't about speed. It was about blending in, becoming invisible. The burner phone vibrated. A message from Maria. "Safe house ready, 2 blocks east." Monique kept walking, her face hidden by the hoodie. Behind her, the protest grew louder as more people arrived. News helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights sweeping the streets. But they weren't looking for someone walking calmly away from the chaos. She thought of Tasha in the hospital, of Jaden with the Whitmans, of Mr. Harris fighting for his life. The rage burned cold in her chest, focusing her mind. The circle thought they'd trapped her, but they'd only succeeded in removing her last restrictions. A police car screamed past, racing toward the jail. The officer didn't even glance at the ordinary-looking woman walking down the sidewalk. Monique kept her pace steady, counting steps, measuring distance. The safe house waited ahead, and with it, the next phase of her plan. The night air felt electric as Monique crouched behind a row of hedges, studying the Whitman house through night vision binoculars. Maria knelt beside her, checking the GPS tracker's signal one last time. 2 armed guards at the front door, Monique whispered. Another patrolling the perimeter. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. The suburban home looked ordinary from the street. 2 stories, white trim, manicured lawn. But Monique's trained eye caught the security details: reinforced windows, motion sensors, cameras disguised as decorative fixtures. The circle wasn't taking chances with their leverage. "The Whitmans are definitely part of it," Maria murmured, showing Monique her phone. Tax records show payments from shell companies linked to Sheriff Billings. They've housed other foster children before, all from families the circle targeted. Monique's jaw tightened. She checked her non-lethal gear: zip ties, pepper spray, smoke capsules. The weight felt familiar, grounding. Remember the plan. Create a distraction at the front. I'll go in through the second floor. Maria nodded and moved toward her position. Monique circled to the back of the house, staying in the shadows. The perimeter guard passed by, radio crackling with routine check-ins. She counted his steps, timing his rotation. When Maria's car alarm started blaring 2 blocks away, the guard's radio came alive. "Check that disturbance!" Through her binoculars, Monique watched the front door guards move to investigate. She sprinted to the house, using the garden trellis to climb. Her muscles burned, but marine training took over. Second floor window, master bedroom, exactly where the blueprints showed. The lock picked easily. These people relied too much on their armed security. Inside, Monique moved silently across thick carpet. A guard's boots creaked on the stairs, coming up to check the noise. She pressed against the wall, waiting. When he reached the top, she struck, one hand covering his mouth, the other applying precise pressure to his carotid artery. He slumped unconsciously as she lowered him quietly to the floor. Down the hall, a door was ajar. Jaden's voice drifted out, small and frightened. "I want Mom." "Quiet now," Mrs. Whitman's falsely sweet voice answered. "Your mother's sick. She needs help. This is better for everyone." Monique's blood boiled, but she kept her movements controlled. The second guard's footsteps approached from below. She removed a smoke capsule from her vest. The capsule hit the first-floor hallway, releasing thick gray clouds. Confusion erupted. "Fire! Get the kids!" Mrs. Whitman shouted. Monique burst into the room. Mrs. Whitman reached for a phone, but Monique was faster. One swift strike knocked the device away. Another put the woman on the ground, zip-tied and gagged before she could scream. "Mom!" Jaden launched himself into her arms. "I've got you, baby." She held him tight, scanning the room. "Where's your sister?" "Locked in the basement," he whispered. "They said she was difficult." Smoke filled the house now. The remaining guard shouted into his radio, calling for backup. Monique led Jaden to the window where Maria waited below. "Go with Aunt Maria. I'm getting Tasha." She moved downstairs through the smoke, using it as cover. The guard fired blindly, bullets embedding in the walls. Monique rolled under his line of fire, swept his legs, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He dropped, gasping. The basement door was solid steel with an electronic lock. Monique pulled out the security override device Maria had provided. 15 seconds felt like hours as it worked. The lock clicked. Monique yanked the door open to find Tasha already in fighting stance, a makeshift weapon in hand. Pride surged through her chest. "Took you long enough," Tasha said, trying to sound tough despite her trembling voice. "That's my girl." Monique hugged her quickly. "Let's move." They ran through the smoke-filled house. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Maria's car idled in the shadows, engine running. Jaden bounced anxiously in the back seat. Tasha dove in first. Monique followed, pulling the door shut as Maria accelerated away. They took back roads, avoiding main streets where police cars raced toward the Whitman house. "Are you hurt?" Monique checked both children in the dim light. "Did they touch you?" "We're okay," Tasha assured her, holding Jaden close. "They just locked us up, tried to tell us you were crazy. But we knew you'd come." "Always," Monique promised, her voice fierce. "I will always come for you." Maria drove them through dark neighborhoods, taking a complicated route to avoid pursuit. After 30 minutes of tense silence, she pulled into an abandoned-looking warehouse. The metal door rolled up automatically. Inside, bright lights revealed a makeshift command center, computers, monitors, medical supplies. And there, sitting in a wheelchair with his arm in a sling, was Mr. Harris. "Welcome to the Resistance," he said, grinning despite his bandaged face. "Took you long enough to join the party?" The warehouse hummed with activity as Monique settled her children on a makeshift bed. Tasha and Jaden finally dozed off, exhausted from their ordeal. Monique watched them sleep for a moment before joining the others at the command center. Mr. Harris sat at a bank of monitors, his good hand flying over keyboards. Maria spread documents across a metal table, organizing evidence into categories. 3 local activists, a church deacon, a teacher, and a retired journalist, huddled around laptops, reviewing security footage. "We've got enough to bury them 10 times over," Maria said, holding up a thick folder. "Financial records, police reports, witness statements. The circle's been operating for decades." Monique picked up a photo showing Travis and his father meeting with masked figures. "They'll claim it's fake. They control the local media, the courts." "Not anymore." Mr. Harris wheeled closer, wincing at his injuries. "While you were rescuing the kids, I finished decrypting their communication logs. Names, dates, locations, everything. They got sloppy, thinking no one would dare challenge them." The retired journalist, Bob Wheeler, nodded grimly. "I've got contacts at 3 national papers. Once this hits the wire services, it'll be too big to contain." "We need to move fast," Deacon Williams added. "The circle will retaliate as soon as they realize what's happening." Monique studied the warehouse blueprint, marking exits and defensive positions. "How long to prepare the data dump?" "Give me an hour," Mr. Harris said. "I'm triple encrypting our transmission channels. They won't be able to trace it back here." Maria's phone buzzed. She checked it, face tightening. "Sheriff's Department just issued a warrant for your arrest, Monique. They're claiming you assaulted the Whitmans during an armed home invasion." "Let them come," Monique said calmly. "Every move they make now just adds to our evidence." The teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, raised her hand. "My students' parents are ready. When the news breaks, they'll organize peaceful protests at City Hall. The whole Hispanic community stands with you." "Same with my congregation," Deacon Williams affirmed, "and 3 other churches. The people are tired of being afraid." Mr. Harris's computers beeped. "Files are ready. I've included a timeline showing how the circle targeted minority families, seized their properties, and forced them out of town. The pattern's undeniable." Maria reviewed the final package on her laptop. "This is perfect. I'm sending it to my contact at the ACLU first. They'll blast it to every major news outlet and civil rights organization in the country." Monique touched the Marine Corps tattoo on her forearm, a reminder of her oath to defend against all enemies. "Do it!" Maria pressed enter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then phones started buzzing. News alerts popped up on screens. Social media exploded. "It's working," Bob Wheeler said, scrolling through reactions. "CNN just picked it up. Fox News, too. Local stations are going live." Outside, they heard cars approaching. Through the security cameras, they watched police vehicles surrounding the warehouse district, searching building by building. "Right on schedule," Monique said. She turned to the others. "Everyone knows their roles?" They nodded. The plan was simple but effective. While the police wasted time searching empty buildings, Maria would drive the children to a safe house run by her law firm. The activists would spread out across town, coordinating protests and managing media response. Mr. Harris would maintain cybersecurity from a backup location. Monique would surrender peacefully, but only after FBI agents arrived. She refused to trust local law enforcement. The warehouse's police scanner crackled with urgent voices. More vehicles were coming, but now they heard different sirens, different engines. "Federal agents," Mr. Harris confirmed, checking traffic cameras. 3 SUVs coming in hot. "Looks like our evidence dump got their attention." Through the monitors, they watched black government vehicles cut off the local police. Men and women in FBI jackets took command of the scene. Maria's phone rang, a Justice Department official requesting an immediate meeting. Monique went to wake her children. They stirred, eyes wide with worry. "Listen carefully," she said, holding their hands. Things are happening fast now. Aunt Maria's taking you somewhere safe, while I talk to some important people who want to help us. Don't leave us again, Jaden pleaded. Yeah, we want to stay with you, Tasha insisted. Monique pulled them close. I promise this is different. The truth is out now. Everyone knows what the Circle did to us and other families. The whole country is watching. They can't hurt us anymore. But what if they try? Jaden asked. Then they'll learn what happens when you mess with a Marine mom and her cubs. Monique managed to smile. We're not running. We're not hiding. We're standing our ground. And justice is coming. Tasha hugged her fiercely. Make them pay, Mom. They will, baby. They will. Monique kissed their foreheads. Now go with Maria. I'll see you soon. As her children left through the secret exit, Monique squared her shoulders and checked her appearance. She wanted to look strong when she faced the cameras. The world needed to see that the Circle hadn't broken her family's spirit. Outside, megaphones crackled. FBI agents called her name, asking her to come out and tell her story. Through the warehouse windows, she saw news vans arriving, protesters gathering with signs. The night was alive with possibility. Mr. Harris touched her arm before wheeling toward his exit. Give 'em hell, Marine. Monique nodded, thinking of her children, of all the families who'd suffered in silence. The time for silence was over. Justice wasn't just within reach, it was demanding to be heard. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the abandoned mill's rusted walls. Monique crouched behind a stack of old crates, checking her phone. Maria's text confirmed the tip. Circle members were gathering for an emergency meeting to deal with the fallout from their exposed crimes. Everyone in position? Monique whispered into her earpiece. South entrance covered, came Maria's voice. We've got protesters ready to block all escape routes. Cameras are live streaming to 20,000 viewers already, Mr. Harris added from his remote setup. FBI tactical team standing by for your signal. Monique touched the small camera pinned to her jacket. Years of Marine training had taught her to control her breathing, to channel fear into focus. She could hear vehicles arriving, car doors slamming, voices echoing through the mill's cavernous interior. Moving silently, she navigated the maze of old machinery. Dust motes danced in shafts of light from broken windows. Her boots didn't make a sound on the concrete floor, just like night ops in combat zones. Voices grew clearer. She recognized Sheriff Billings' commanding tone, Travis's angry protests. Keeping to the shadows, she climbed a metal staircase to the mill's upper level. Perfect vantage point. Below, Circle members gathered around a makeshift table. Some wore masks, others didn't bother hiding anymore. Sheriff Billings paced, his usual calm replaced by barely controlled rage. Who leaked the files? He demanded. Someone in this room betrayed us. Years of work, generations of control, gone in one night. It's that Marine bitch, Travis spat. She's turned the whole town against us. Shut up, Billings rounded on his son. Your stupidity started this. If you hadn't targeted her kids, you said we had to maintain order. Show them their place. Through fear, you idiot. Subtle pressure. Not beating up children in broad daylight. Monique activated her camera's live feed. Mr. Harris's voice whispered, Signals strong. FBI moving into position. More Circle members arrived. Business owners, cops, politicians. Their faces matched the evidence perfectly. Some argued for immediate violent retaliation. Others wanted to flee town with their assets. Nobody's going anywhere, Billings ordered. We still control this town. Once we eliminate the troublemakers. You mean murder innocent families? Monique's voice carried through the mill. All heads snapped up as she emerged onto a walkway. Phone recording. Just like you murdered those other families who stood up to you? Take her down, Billings shouted. Two masked men rushed the stairs. Monique was ready. The first attacker met a precise strike to the throat. The second caught her boot to his knee. Both crashed down, groaning. "Your reign of terror is over," she announced, voice steady. "The whole world is watching now." Travis grabbed a pipe, charging upstairs. "I'll kill you myself." Monique sidestepped his wild swing. The pipe clanged against railing. She caught his arm, used his momentum to flip him. Travis landed hard, pipe clattering away. "Stay down, boy," she warned. "You've done enough damage." Sheriff Billings drew his gun. "I won't let you destroy everything we built." "You mean everything you stole?" Monique's camera caught his trembling hand. "How many families did you drive out? How many lives did you ruin to maintain your power? We protected this town's values." "You mean white supremacy? Corruption? Fear?" Monique moved along the walkway, keeping him in frame. "Tell the viewers at home about the white roses, about the families who disappeared." Billings's face contorted. "Those people were warned. They chose not to listen." "Like you warned my children?" Monique's voice turned cold. "You made a mistake targeting my family. Marines don't back down from bullies." "You self-righteous!" Billings aimed at her chest. Monique dropped and rolled as the shot rang out. In one fluid motion, she came up with Travis's pipe, hurling it. It struck Billings's gun hand with military precision. The weapon skittered across the floor as Billings howled in pain. Circle members scattered in panic. But steel shutters slammed down over the exits, Mr. Harris's handiwork. "Federal agents!" The mill erupted with shouts and flashbangs. FBI teams poured in from multiple entries. Protesters outside cheered, their voices carrying through broken windows. Monique vaulted down to the main floor, landing beside the fallen sheriff. He reached for an ankle holster, but she was faster. One sharp strike disabled his arm. "That's for my children," she said, pinning him down. "And for every family you terrorized." FBI agents swarmed in, cuffing circle members. Maria led a camera crew through the chaos, live streaming everything. Travis sobbed as he was led away, his father's empire crumbling around them. Monique stood slowly, muscles aching. Her phone showed thousands of comments pouring in. Support, relief, celebrations of justice. The Circle's decades-long grip on the town had been broken in less than 2 minutes of broadcast. Dust and tear gas swirled in afternoon sunlight as she walked outside. A crowd had gathered. Hundreds of townspeople, reporters, activists. And there, breaking through the police line, came Tasha and Jaden. Monique opened her arms as her children ran to her. Their embrace said everything words couldn't. Fear transformed into triumph. Love stronger than hate. Justice finally served. "Is it really over?" Jaden asked against her shoulder. Monique held them tight, watching FBI agents escort Sheriff Billings and his conspirators to waiting vehicles. The crowd's cheers washed over them like cleansing rain. "Yes, baby," she said. "They can't hurt anyone ever again." The autumn breeze rustled through newly planted flowers in Monique's front yard. Inside her living room, warm lamplight cast a gentle glow over fresh paint and repaired walls, all evidence of the Circle's vandalism erased by community volunteers. Monique sat in her favorite armchair, surrounded by the people who had stood beside her through the darkest days. Tasha and Jaden sprawled on the carpet, while Maria perched on the couch next to Mr. Harris, who was finally walking without a cane. On the TV screen, a news anchor reported, "In a landmark case, former Sheriff William Billings and 12 other members of the criminal organization known as the Circle received lengthy prison sentences today. Their convictions include hate crimes, corruption, conspiracy." "Turn it up," Mr. Harris said, leaning forward. "I want to hear every word." Jaden grabbed the remote, increasing the volume, as footage showed Travis and his father being led into court in orange jumpsuits. The exposure of the circle has prompted nationwide investigations into similar corruption networks, the anchor continued. Governor Thompson has announced sweeping police reform measures, with input from community leaders including Monique Daniels, whose courage broke the case open. "Mom, you're famous," Jaden beamed, pointing at her image on screen. Monique smiled, remembering the governor's call yesterday. The position they offered, leading the new Civil Rights Enforcement Division, it would mean real change. Not just catching bad guys, but preventing abuse of power in the first place. "You have to take it," Tasha insisted. Her eyes shone with pride. "You could help so many people." "Just like you helped us," Mr. Harris added, his gruff voice softening. This town needed someone willing to stand up, to show others they could stand up too. Maria nodded, spreading papers across the coffee table. The reforms are comprehensive. Civilian oversight, mandatory bias training, transparent complaint processes. And look, they're naming the Whistleblower Protection Clause the Daniels Act. Speaking of standing up, Monique turned to Tasha. "Tell them about your club." Tasha sat straighter, excitement clear in her voice. "We already have 30 members. Students, teachers, even the principal is supporting us. We're calling it Stand Strong, a place for anyone who's faced discrimination to find support and learn their rights." "And we're making posters," Jaden chimed in. He ran to get his latest drawing, proudly displaying a colorful image of diverse hands joined in a circle. Monique pulled him close, heart swelling. After weeks of seeing him jump at shadows, it was healing to watch him return to art and play. His nightmares were becoming less frequent, replaced by dreams of becoming an artist who draws pictures of heroes like Mom. "The whole town's different now," Mr. Harris observed. "People who stayed quiet before are speaking up. That grocery store that gave you trouble? New management, half the staff replaced. They're hosting diversity training next week. And the protest movement isn't stopping," Maria added. "We've got chapters starting in 3 neighboring counties. People realized if it could happen here, it could happen anywhere. But they also saw it could be beaten." A knock at the door made Jaden tense briefly, but he relaxed when he saw their new neighbors through the window. The Williams family had moved in last week, the first black family to buy a house on the street in decades. "Come in," Monique called. More guests arrived: activists, church members, reformed former Circle employees who had helped expose the corruption. The living room filled with warmth and conversation. "Remember when you first moved here?" Mr. Harris asked quietly. "All those for sale signs that mysteriously appeared?" "The Circle thought they could drive us out," Monique replied. "Instead, they drove themselves out. Now, families are moving back. All kinds of families." Through the window, she could see children playing together on the sidewalk, their laughter carrying inside. No parents anxiously watching, no cars slowing to intimidate. Just kids being kids, the way it should be. "Mrs. Daniels?" A young officer, one of the good ones who had helped expose the Circle, appeared in the doorway. "The Police Reform Committee would like to schedule your first consultation next week, and the FBI has some questions about similar cases in other jurisdictions." "I'll be there," Monique assured him, "but right now, I'm celebrating with my family." The officer nodded respectfully and left. Tasha brought out a cake decorated with "Justice Wins" in blue frosting. As they shared slices, stories flowed, memories of the struggle mixed with plans for the future. "To Mom," Tasha raised her glass of soda. "The scariest Marine the Circle ever met." Everyone laughed and toasted. Monique hugged her children close, remembering every terrifying moment, every sleepless night, every hard choice that had led to this victory. The sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant orange. People drifted toward the porch, drawn by the cool evening air. Monique's new rocking chairs, gifts from the community, creaked softly as neighbors settled in to chat. Looking out over her transformed street, Monique felt decades of tension finally begin to release from her shoulders. Tasha and Jaden leaned against her, safe and strong, their futures now unlimited by hate or fear. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.